I was just walking from my office to a Starbucks, and just was a matter of which light had the walk sign at the corner that made me go left instead of right. And I was walking right by the monument when the shot started. My body, I instinctively knew it was gunfire, and without thinking too much about it, I went running over there. And full speed. At one point, there was 2 people beside a van that was parked on the sidewalks. I told them to stay there, and then I got out and kept running. And then it's only when arriving actually right by the tomb of the unknown soldier that I looked down, and it was Corporal Cirillo, and Kyle Button, corporal there, was already doing first aid and checking him over.
You were holding Nathan Cirillo's hand.
His left hand, yeah.
What was going through your mind?
Well, I have children, and I was really thinking at that point that, why I grabbed his hand. Well, if anything like this happened to any of my children, I'd really hope that a stranger would hold their hand too, and as they went through to the other side. You say the seconds trickle by, but they don't. Like, time just kind of gets all weird. And as we got into, I don't know how long it took. It might have been a matter of seconds for all of us to arrive at that point and to get into a routine. And then you start breathing again, and you become self-aware, and you start looking around and say, is it over? Is there more? And I'm holding on to a man's legs who's first aid, CPR is being performed on him. We're trying to keep this person alive. And you also notice the trees, and you notice a bird fly by, and you look around and you see people off in the distance. Then you start hearing sirens, and you become aware that I became aware that you're covered in sweat all of a sudden, and it gets very, very different. Time just gets really loose and bendy. I believe that the whole group was kind of aware at one point that he had moved on. I really believe that. It kind of became apparent, I think, after a few minutes that his wounds were too severe for no matter what we did. Nothing stopped. Everyone kept going with first aid, and of course when the ambulances arrived and they started doing their checks over him, and they proceeded to open his shirt and examine the wounds and stuff like that. I was still there, and hearing them talk amongst themselves, it became apparent to me at that point that he had passed on. The ambulance people relieved us from Nathan, and I kind of just sat back, and I was sitting actually on the tomb of the unknown soldier, just on the footing of it, and I'm facing the monument. So I see them cart away Nathan on the ambulances, and I'm looking down, and there's people are kind of dispersing, and there's bags on the ground, and then my hands are shaking. I'm getting kind of cold, and then I just look up at the stone face, and you look up higher, and you see like such an imposing, the statue of the soldiers and the guns, and you can see just the tip of the horses in the back there, and that was probably the coldest, loneliest moment of my life at that point. And then I tell myself, wow, that was like a guy. That was a real person that they're carting away in an ambulance right now. Those were, it all comes rushing in because time starts to catch up to you, or was catching up to me at this point. And then I'm thinking, like why? What's the point of all this? Like, this is all wrong. I'm still taking lessons from that every day. I hope I'm a better person because of it. I'm trying to learn and grow, and to keep moving forward.